oh my God, I'm actually so much further than I originally believed. I'm so much further than I initially thought. And it helped me feel a sense of reverence for myself now because it's like, oh, I'm so much better than I thought. Look at how far I've come. And look at how much my beliefs have distorted my like well-being.
Finally, there's a movie that is not only comprehensive for young kids, but also adults to really recognize that our belief structures, right? We really can develop them and they will continuously perpetuate themselves unless we get help, unless we get support. And that can be so destructive to one's world.
Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Hey everyone, it's Emilia.
And one of the things that you and I talk about most, and one of the things that we see the most with our clients, is this pervasive, like never ending feeling of not being enough, not feeling like you can do enough, like you are enough, like you're ever going to be enough. And I don't think we can talk about it enough. LOL. I think this is a topic that needs to be talked about as much as possible because of how many people are struggling with this and how many people just struggle with that narrative and just the severity of the impact of it. I know it's something that I struggled with for so long, and it's the primary challenge that all of my clients have when they come to see me. And I'm thinking about a specific client in particular. This this individual came to see me after years of trauma and things happening to her. And one of the things that we really dove into was what it was like growing up in her family and the way
Mhm.
that her family still treats her. Any decision that this person makes, her family just automatically jumps on her and questions. Well, why did you do this? Well, why did you do that? Well, you should have did it this way. No, no, no. Just listen to us and listen to what we say. Why don't you
Yeah.
want us around anymore? Well, we're just trying to help you. Why are you? And it's just all of these really attacking, judgmental comments and questions that have led her to think I can't do anything right. No matter what I do, it's not good enough. I guess I want to start with a more open-ended question for you of why do you think, from your perspective, so many people go through this? Like, what have you seen as the pattern? Family is definitely one of them. Um, what are the things that you've really noticed?
Hmm. Honestly, B, what comes to mind is I was in on Fridays now, like for the next 9 Fridays, we have PPGs, which is our participation practice group for the trauma recovery coaching that we're doing right now. And so we're in the throngs of demonstrating our core skills and core competencies. And so essentially that's like round robin coaching trauma survivors. And B, what I thought was really, really fascinating, which is a skill that I'm brushing up on for sure. But as I research and as I groom through the research that we're reviewing right now around childhood and adolescent development and the trauma, childhood trauma, in particular, the emotional neglect, it's been wild, B, to see, because I've always studied this, like since high school, but studying this from this lens to this podcast topic at the level of experience and background that I have underneath my belt now, it is wild to see how wildly underestimated emotional attunement is. Meaning, when you are going through an experience, how well is someone really, really present with you? How well is someone, especially someone you care about and are engaging with and wanting to bring up something that either happened to you, your day-to-day events, right? Like challenges, struggles, emotional turmoils that you're having, thinking through dynamics of your day, right? That it's not having actually someone who is going to be present with you in your experiences. From what I've seen, and as I examine it from this lens of like a 360-degree feedback loop and going through all of this literature that I've read and stuff that we've even done together, it's been like it's like an arrow through my heart of the not feeling good enough, and no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. It comes back down to one of those roots, one of those roots of not having someone that it's not just not having someone, but it's not having someone within your family specifically, or within, you know, people that you trust at a young age, really being able to attune to what it is that you're going through emotionally, right? And help you build an understanding of what that means and assign a healthy, adaptive, functioning meaning with it. So, like a kid, for example, I'm thinking back um, to this client that you had mentioned. I would imagine a younger version of her going back and thinking like she probably discovered something really cool in science class and was really excited about it, and then went back to her family and all of a sudden said like she decided to um, want to do a science experiment at home with maybe some leaves or some stuff there in nature. And I can imagine how quickly, given what you just said, her parents went into, well, like, just shutting her down, not emotionally attuning to her whatsoever, and not, like, being curious about her emotional experience, and how that one little tiny missed opportunity from my perspective, it is a absolute missed opportunity, how the lack of that leaning really in and being curious with her as a child, how that continued over time to just cultivate this giant belief that no matter what I do, it's not going to be enough to get attention from the people that I love and care about the most, and who seemingly love and care about me the most, right, on the external. So that's kind of what I'm growing through at this very stage in my personal development, my professional development, in my clinical experience. However, I'm not naive enough to think that it's not just that, and it's not just that in isolation. So I want to turn the question back to you and get your input and get your perspective. Like, what have you seen and what have you noticed and what have your research, your experience, what has that brought you in, or how would you put that in your own words?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think so many people go through life never having those safe people with them who really are able to meet them where they are and have these dynamic, just wholesome experiences with them, or the parents' own feelings of inadequacy then getting put on the child. It's like, oh, you did this thing. Yeah, but it's not perfect and you need to fix it and you need to do this and you need to do that. It's so many people are suffering because of the lack of competency and the challenges that their parents went through. Not because their parents are these terrible, evil people, but because their
No.
parents don't know better. Like
Right.
that client, her parents, I know because we've talked about it,
Mm.
really struggle with their own feelings of belonging, their own feelings of being enough. And so they use a lot of guilt and manipulation to get all of their kids to show up and to be there and to do things for them. And
Right.
they use doing things for their kids as kind of a manipulation tool. It's like, well, we do all of these things for you.
Right.
That doesn't help your child to feel competent. That doesn't help your child to feel loved. And even if you did have parents where you grew up and they were validating to you, if you had friends that you ended up comparing to, if you had siblings that you were comparing to, if you had people in your
Teammates.
social group,
Yeah.
teammates, friends, teachers, whomever that you're looking at, and for whatever reason you start having the thought, oh my God, I'm not enough,
Mm.
it eats away at you.
Yeah.
Now, add on top of that, if you also don't have a home where your parents are capable of giving you empathy and compassion and can sit with you in your uncomfortable feelings, what's going to happen to you as a result? You're never going to know how to navigate through these thoughts that pop up and the
Mhm.
negative emotions that tie in with them. And that's how core beliefs develop. I'm
Mhm.
rewatching Inside Out 2 because we have movie club on
Mm.
Monday, and
Yeah.
I just got to the part where Joy um kind of like pulled out that contraption to like throw the beliefs back that or
Oh,
the
the core
memories
belief
that
tree?
yeah, no.
This
Well, it was right before that. So remember how she made this contraption to like put the orbs in so she can fling them
Oh,
back of the mind?
yeah, the,
Little
like, the chute?
ratty looking thing. Yeah, the
Yeah, that comes down from the ceiling. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That scene is so funny, but
Yeah.
what
Oh,
it
such a powerful scene.
what it reminded me of is the fact that like how accurate that is. That
Right?
our brain will literally do whatever to throw out all of the memories and the beliefs and the ideas that disconfirm
Mm,
the belief and the idea that we already have. So if
right.
you have developed a belief from a young age for whatever reason, and I want to really make sure that I say this, these beliefs don't just develop because of your parents.
No.
A lot of kids have a more anxious temperament. Some people are just born with a more depressive temperament,
Mhm.
not because of anything, but just because of the brain mechanism of
Chemistry.
that specific kid. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you might just be born with a more depressive temperament or a more anxious temperament, and you might not take in the information that your family's giving you, the validation that you're getting from other people, the sense of love and connection. I've been really reflecting on my life and um, a lot of the experiences that I've had just as a human being and as a woman. And it was wild. I haven't shared this with you yet. So I don't know why, but I had this intuitive ping yesterday to
Mhm.
go through my Google Photos archive and not,
Oh, man. Google
oh,
Photos archive.
oh my God. It was my Worcester State email that I used because I knew
Oh,
that that one had older photos saved in it. So I
wow.
went through it and my heart sank to the pit of my stomach
Mm, yeah.
because I was looking at these photos and I'm looking at this girl, me, like back then. It was like photos from
Yeah.
2013. So this was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I I had to like compose myself to not completely sob and lose my shit because I had to jump into another call.
Yeah.
I was looking at this girl and I'm like, "Oh my God, I was so much better than I thought back then."
Mm,
I had so many friends in my life and my family did their best. Yes, they were flawed, but like my family showed up in the best way that they could and like
mhm.
they supported me way more than I thought
Mm,
back then. And I had so many more people in my life and I was looking at photos of me and my first boyfriend and that's a whole story
mhm.
and a half, but like I was like, "Oh my God, I sabotaged
Mm,
so much.
mm,
It's not even funny." Because I was a kid who was born with a more anxious temperament. And I
mhm.
really latched on at a young age to the narrative that I wasn't good enough. And I found every piece of evidence that I could to support that belief. Now, granted, there were things that happened that fed into it. And
Yeah.
also, because I already had that narrative, I was looking for evidence to support that. So I'm looking through these photos and I'm looking through I started from those photos and then I kind of went up until all of my recent photos. And it was just like, I have been self sabotaging
Mhm.
and hurting myself and shrinking and dimming
Mm,
my entire life
that's so sad.
because I developed this belief that I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And seeing the physical representation of that, it was just like,
That must have been so
oh,
hard.
It was the biggest slap in the face I think I've ever had, and it was amazing because
Yeah.
it really helped me to see that it was never actually true. Was
Mm.
I the most competent human being? No. Was I, like, the most gorgeous thing ever, God's gift to earth? No. But it wasn't nearly as bad as I had originally thought back then. Because I remember I felt hideous, I felt so damaged, I felt so broken,
Mm.
and I'm looking at these photos and I'm like, "I was so beautiful back then." Even with, like, it being 2019 and we all I mean, 2014 and we all shaved half of our eyebrows off and, like, did crazy stuff with fashion. Or listen, I'm throwing my tweezers out after looking at those photos. I'm like, "I don't wanna see my tweezers ever again." But it was just you look back and you see the physical representation
Oh.
of how destructive unhelpful beliefs are. The reason I bring this up is because we're all doing this to some degree. We all, for whatever reason, have beliefs and ideas and narratives and perspectives that we're not enough, that we're not capable, that we're not ever going to be good at anything. And sometimes there is evidence to show that it's true. Like sometimes there is evidence. I like, you know what? You weren't that great. You weren't,
Yeah.
you didn't do everything perfectly, whatever. And yes, maybe your parents did do all of these things, right? Like there is validity to that. And it's not a death sentence. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that that's your life in its entirety. And when I looked back at those photos, I reflected on where I am today. And it gave me so much reverence for how far I've come. Like I was actually able to see, oh my God, I'm actually so much further than I originally believed. I'm so much further than I initially thought. And it helped me feel a sense of reverence for myself now because it's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm so much better than I thought. Look at how
Mm.
far I've come. And look at how much my beliefs have distorted my like well-being.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Hello, everybody. My name is Derek Smith. I just wanted to come on here and talk about my time at Evolve and being a team member. It's been nothing short of phenomenal. And I don't say that as somebody just trying to hype up the team or the business or anything like that. No, it's genuine and like genuinely I've never been a part of such a group, had people that were so invested in me, being able to keep me accountable and like pushing and really just supporting me for my own growth. And the amount of things that I've been able to help and influence, manage in myself, learn about, and just being a part of this community, all under the guidance of Bianca and Emilia, for me, that's just been phenomenal. So my time here has just been very, very blessed. So thank you, Emilia. Thank you, Bianca. You guys rock.
Well, it's yeah, and it goes both ways too. There's people that I know that have had beliefs inserted into them at a very young age and also, well into their 40s that are
Yeah.
wildly inaccurate on the end of I am the best, right? Like I am the man. I am the best woman on planet Earth, right? Like there is no person that can compare to me, right? There's people that go the complete opposite way with it. And that's what's, I think, very extraordinary about beliefs because they distort reality. They really, really do, right? And it's the cognitive distortions which further do so. But it's ultimately that belief about yourself or about the world that you have that isn't necessarily rooted in full blown holistic reality. It's only bits and pieces that confirm it, right? To support that architecture of belief. And like B, you had shared that when you looked back initially and you started to I remember you had like asked your mom about Um,
Oh, yeah.
when did you first start being insecure? When did you first start, right? There was a whole journey that you had done in introspection. And, it was heartbreaking to see from thenceforth you navigated life based off of that belief system and hadn't developed, a part within you that could actively welcome in contrary evidence. And
Mm.
so many people experience that, right? And I think that that's what Inside Out 2 does. Honestly, when I first watched that movie, I was crying through the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Alan said it's like the first movie you couldn't lean back in your chair. You were like hands, like knees on elbows on your knees, like face in your hand, just so excited and crying from pure space of joy and relief that there's actually a visualization for the first time in the world, so beautifully scientifically accurate to date, up to speed for the most part. And we'll talk about that in movie club. But finally, there's a movie that is not only comprehensive for young kids, but also adults to really recognize that our belief structures, right? We really can develop them, and they will continuously perpetuate themselves unless we get help, unless we get support. And that can
Yeah.
be so destructive to one's world. Riley, the main character in that, she lost her best friends, because she didn't know how to emotionally cope with her friends being at a different school. And it just totally tore down her worlds. And you can actively see that in the movie. But ultimately, to the ode to this episode is really around, can we all reflect based on using that example that you shared with us, that what is our belief structure right now? What is the architecture, and how have parts of us developed to welcome in evidence that supports that, right? They get the VIP pass, but all of the evidence that you might be denying or a part of you might be completely distorting, right? That's getting like put on hold. And what are those slivers of evidence that might be worth considering or taking into the equation when it comes to
Mm.
why you might not right now? If you feel that in a specific arena in your life, or if you feel that in a holistic avenue, and you notice that that feeling continuously pops up, that inner narrative comes back in, right? Kicks into overdrive. What ultimately is contributing to that? And what, to use that example, be looking back, how much of that one belief is it self sabotaging your life, your progress, your career, your friendships, your intimacy, your connection with your family, your ability to heal, right? Working through the childhood trauma that you had, right? So it's just an interesting and wildly pervasive core belief that I'm not enough, and I'm not going to be enough. I'll never be enough. I'll never do good enough. That is so much more pervasive than I ever had imagined. And it makes me as I've been reflecting on what I had shared based on the scientific literature that I'm digging through, to where it gets into the different genes that even get expressed because of this,
It's
and
wild.
those that don't. It makes me really reflect as a female leader in terms of the roles and responsibilities, and a future mom too, even, of like how I want to navigate each space and each interaction with humans. And it's really shaken up my world in a different regard, to where the things that my my parents, my family, my culture, my gender thought was important, and the place of information to which defined what was important when it came to people interacting with people and their core beliefs, how wildly those need to get upgraded with the data, with the science, with the literature, because so many people are so unaware of how deep this stuff goes, and how much it really does hurt so many people's worlds. So, just the sensitivity to that. I'm grateful for
Mm.
what we're learning, and I'm grateful for the courageous people, even in group coaching that we had the other night, how vulnerable they were about their experiences and about these core beliefs of really not feeling enough, right? So,
Something that I do just want to make sure that I say is there are, and this is something I've really had to come to an acceptance of, there are going to be some things that you're not enough
Mhm.
for. Like, there I don't have a specific example that I can pull up right now, but like there's things that you're always going to be better than me at.
Mm.
And that's okay. I think one of the things that people have a hard time accepting it like too is that it's okay not to be good enough at all things.
Right.
It's okay not to be perfect at everything. Like it's not a possibility.
It's really not.
Are you good enough at the things that matter to you? And do you feel as though you're in a space where you can develop a growth mindset that I might not be good at this thing yet, but it doesn't mean I can't get there.
Mm.
And I'm willing to accept that there are certain things that I'm just not going to be good at. And that's okay. It doesn't take away from my worth as a human being in and of itself. Just because
I have
I
a
don't
great
know,
example.
I can't make a PowerPoint as nicely and quickly as efficiently as you can, doesn't mean I can't
Yeah.
learn and still do a good job.
Right. The example that came to mind, this is recently coming up in my world, is, I want to be like, there's such a part of me that desires so deeply to be the best partner, to be the best business partner, to be the best leader, to be the best friend, to be the best mentor, to be the best sister, daughter, mommy to my fur babies. And one thing in particular, right, with and you know this, we've talked about this, with 3 fur babies, is like I want to train and I want to develop them. Miss Tilly girl, she's almost she's yeah, just crossed the year old threshold, and there's certain personalities that she's showing. And one of her favorite things to do is first thing in the morning, there's this plant that we have, this artificial plant. It's a box fern. So essentially picture like a globe and then just like like little leaves cropping out of it. She like loves to pull off, because it's artificial, the parts that are like the leafy parts.
That's
And
funny.
we've developed this little game every single morning that she just waits in the morning outside of our bedroom. And when I open up the door, she now starts to meow and look at me and pretty much says, "Mom, can you go get the little plant? And can you, like, we call it her kill, Tilly, go get your kill." And so she like meow and she'll go get it. And then she'll like pull it over as if it's like a rat that she found in the wild. It's so funny. And she like plays around with it for the next like 4 hours. Literally, it's wild. So she'll keep herself entertained. But there will be mornings where I don't necessarily have time, right? Because of whatever reason, to play with Tilly girl and to make sure that I encourage her to go develop and get the kill and jump from A to B and like really develop her skill sets as a cat, right? Now that, granted, that's a little bit of a weird example, but there was a thought that I had where I felt really guilty about not playing with her one morning and not being consistent with her a couple weeks ago in that, because I could notice the bond between us, right? It started to actually go down. And this, for mommy Amelia, like can't handle that discomfort. And really, it was like, how am I ever going to be a good enough fur mommy? We don't even have children
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, right? So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
that. So I can only imagine, right? That's just one tiny example. I can only imagine how that feels for so many of us, right? That one thing I'm looking at, okay, that's important to me, but what is also important is to make sure that I can show up for Evolve and our clients. And I need to be realistic in terms of rating what does matter. And it's such a game at like trying to figure out what that is. And I cannot have a level 10 standards in everything. It's just wildly irrational and unrealistic. So, to the point, and to kind of my last thing on this episode is to really recognize like, doing an
Yeah.
audit with oneself at really recognizing that we do live in a finite world. And this is coming from someone who always thinks infinitely. So I feel your pain if you are in that boat as well, because time just slips away, or if you have time blindness because you're ADHD, like I feel you. Not everything is going to be a 10 out of 10. It might feel that way, but when you really, really hunker down and recognize that there's only so much time that you have on this earth, what are those things where you do really want to feel enough in? And
Mhm.
how can you make sure that those are prioritized to really help you recognize that yes, you're going to be enough in that. But then also, to your point, B, let those other things drop and not berate yourself and let that inner shaming and inner critic come in and just slap you up against the wall and say you suck in all these inner narratives, which is so easy to come in when maybe something is a level 9 out of 10 important to you. For example, that Tilly example, right? Being a great mom to my fur babies and showing up and developing them, but it's not the 10. And when compared with a 10, I need to be okay with working through that discomfort and the emotional turmoil that says, okay, maybe I didn't have the time to do that, but that doesn't mean I'm not enough. And that doesn't mean that I'm not a good mom. And that doesn't mean X, Y, and Z. Really harboring that self compassion and being able to apply that when maybe you do have evidence that could easily be pointed towards this belief that if you believed it further, would just tear you down, you know?
Mm, I'm so glad you said that. I feel like a terrible dog mom literally every single day. I'm like, I'm the worst mom in the world and I'm not playing with him enough. And like the amount of
Right.
times I've bawled my eyes out because I'm like, he would be better off with somebody else. And it's just,
Yeah.
we all struggle with this. We
Yeah.
all have areas in our life where we feel like we're not enough, and giving yourself the grace to understand I'm not going to be perfect at everything. And there are
Mhm.
things that I'm doing well and things that I can get better in and things I really need to just let go of. It makes all the difference in the world. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
if this is something that you are struggling with, you are not alone, and please reach out for help. You don't have to struggle through this by yourself. What is your episode suggestion?
My episode suggestion, if you like this episode, is to go to 278. Do you know what happened to you? Little douse of trauma friendly, trauma informed, trauma recovery um, type podcast. B.
302, no is a complete sentence. A lot of the times we don't feel good enough because we struggle to say no, and we're
Mm.
people pleasing like crazy because of that narrative. So if you are
Yep.
a people pleaser, hi, welcome to the club. And there's an episode for you. All right,
Awesome.
everybody. We will see you next time. Bye.